Hello. All right, so this is the Visitor Services Advisory Committee. And wanted to note that there are public participation guidelines. We are using Zoom for this meeting, which allows for the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. The chair can request that members of the public provide their names for purposes of keeping accurate minutes of the meeting. Attendees must register to participate. The registration link is unique to the meeting. The registration link can be found in the description of Nantucket Government TV YouTube live feed for the meeting. And attendees will join in listening mode. They can click the raise hand button if they wish to speak. The chair will call on those who have raised their hands in order they are raised. All questions should be directed through the chair. As a preliminary matter, this is the Visitor Services Advisory Committee. David Sharp, the Visitor Services Coordinator, permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary Malvez.
Here.
Liz Holland.
Here.
Matt Peel.
Here.
Peter Morrison.
Here.
Garrison Beal.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tina Weatherly.
Here.
Chantal Blois Murphy.
Here.
And David Sharp, I'm here. And anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Peter Burke.
Here.
Okay, so this meeting of the Visitor Advisory Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless each participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting of the Visitor Advisory Committee is convening by a video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that any other folks may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, please permit me to cover some ground for rules of effective and clear conduct for our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking, and please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in the conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment of those members of the public who have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. And we also have public comment. So I'm gonna leave it at that to Madam Chair. Take it away.
Thank you, David. First of all, before we move to the first, actually the third item on the agenda, I'd like to welcome Dina Weatherly, who is here with us for the first time. She is a new staff member at Visitor Services doing events. So welcome, Dina. Happy to see you on board. Next item is the approval of the November 12th minutes. I have one minor correction. It's in the paragraph under report on economic impact towards the very end, where the room occupancy revenue was listed for all the years. There's a typo on 2022. That would be my only correction. And David, I'm sure you have the numbers somewhere.
Can you be,
But-
can you be more specific as to which 2022 that is?
It's the room occupancy revenue was as follows sentence.
Okay.
And it says 21 and there was a number, 2022, there was a number. And I think it's just a typo. It only says $1 million for the whole year of 2022. So I think we're missing a zero somewhere.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's it. Is there any other errors or additions or corrections to the minutes? All right, hearing none, can I have a motion to approve with the changes?
So moved by Peter.
Peter, can I have a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. We'll have to do this by roll call, I believe. All in favor of the November 12th minutes being approved with the correction? Peter,
Aye.
Liz,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Garrison,
Aye.
and I believe Niles is just joining, and I will say
Yep.
aye as well.
Aye.
Okay, next item. Welcome, Peter Burke. It's so nice to see you in January when we're not running around and planning events and doing all sorts of things. It has certainly been a challenging end of the year for everyone. And I thank you for being here to give us an update and hopefully talk about some things for the future.
Sure.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is always a good time. And I know what you're talking about. Stroll was a breeze. There's nothing that went on. Nothing that happens. In all seriousness, we kind of had to, in the aftermath of Stroll coming out of the following week, we really had to divide it into two pieces. Stroll, by a lot of metrics, was a success, especially the ones we could control. We look at how do we measure success. We're at some point of these large scale events, we have to get people to the island. And when they get here, we try to provide them with a lot of options of what to do. And I would think, using like place AI data, we saw upwards of 18,000 people that weekend on our cell phone tracking, reported at. And if you looked at, we tried to isolate Main Street, which isn't an exact science, but we could safely estimate that 5,000 to 6,000 people came down Main Street at some point during the day on Saturday. Like that's a good day. It's a lot of good things that have happened. There was the minor inconvenience of losing power downtown, which, I'm a glass half full kind of guy, if people know me at all, and trying to keep spirits up. And to be perfectly honest, there was a lot of reason that the public had to be a little bit, bummed out or perturbed. Most people kept a really, really positive attitude. The Christmas spirit was high in the air. It was pretty positive. I think the second wave of that is with temperatures and timing and lighting, it does become power outage becomes a safety issue, right? Public safety was all over it. And I wanted to applaud, police and fire, had that eye on it the whole time. Was how dark is it too dark for people to walk down a street with no street lights? How is it in a restaurant with no heat? How is it in a hotel with no heat? So I do want to thank police and fire and also Shanta, in a role we probably didn't expect to have happen. Shanta was leading the charge on trying to get a solo shot one-off ferry trip for National Grid equipment and was at the finish line with that project only to be stymied by Steamship not having an available crew. And that's not a shot at Steamship. I'm not asking them to have a separate crew ready on a Saturday to Stroll. Like that's just not a fair request. But for the things we could control, we could control it. A lot of things went right. Of course, I wish that, the power hadn't gone out. It has created a little more work in the aftermath than usual. But if we look at the parts of Stroll that we could control and where could we still improve, Santa's arrival, Liz and her team down at the High Line, unbelievable as always. However, there was still an issue of real overcrowding. And that's not like hyperbole. There was a point where the Nantucket Police Department, in conjunction with our staff and volunteers and the Highline staff, had to tell Santa Claus, do not get off the boat, because they were worried about a human snowplow of not enough room for people to let Santa pass without getting pushed into the water. So within a few minutes, they had that all sorted out. But that does, like, we can't ignore that. We can say there were a lot of things in our favor, great weather, Stroll 50, right? We had kind of run that engine up. I still think it's worth a look. How do we make sure that, again, public safety is paramount? This event is great and a lot of fun, but it can only happen for another 50 years if we keep everyone safe at it. So that is a real concern, and it's not going to be solved today on this call. But I know a lot of you are involved in helping to plan our events, and with the town, especially permitting, we will be looking at how do we change, whether it's personnel, crowd management or people management, or where do we, how do we change Santa's arrival? I don't want anyone to get pushed into the water. That's as much as I love doing the polar plunge here and there, it's not what I want to do on the weekend. So, and then we look at, did we have, I think we did improve our porta potty game, right? We ended up with 9. I think last year we had 4. So the increase in available restrooms was heard from groups like this committee, and then also from other town agencies, and just doing what's right. People need places to use the bathroom. So we kind of answered that call, which I think I'll gladly open the floor to suggestions, but we had to cluster them towards the downtown market, the downtown Stop and Shop lot, which we did. But did that leave us, you call it, with fewer bathrooms than we want elsewhere in town? And if that's the case, just help us identify where we can put, restrooms in town elsewhere, because we will gladly look at those options. I think other than those, controllable things and kind of those high points, I think last piece is coming out of the power outage. There are some communication strategies that I don't think we're wrong. Being the power out, we are guessing that there was some sort of cell phone interference with the power outage, because everyone's cell phone seemed not to work. It was either a number of people, yay, check the box, we got a zillion people here, or I don't know if the cell phone booster in one of the church steeples went down with power outage. I don't know. That's an easy, tangible ask. How do we make sure that if the power goes out, there's still reliable communication? Because businesses were having a hard time getting info from us and from the town. And some of that is, look, that was a wild card of all wild cards, and there's only so much you can do. There's also, like, the timing of information coming from National Grid. I feel like everyone was getting the National Grid kind of, we'll call it robot updates from their phone, which is National Grid's, I'm sure, service team identifies a process and says, okay, that usually takes 5 hours on average to fix. 5 hours. We need human intervention to say, yeah, there's a boat trip in there. That's 7 hours or 8 hours, because having the most accurate information would have potentially changed the response strategies to businesses that had faced power outages. Do they freeze more food? Do they move operations? Do they change things up? So totally imperfect science. I'm very happy that it was a relatively safe event for the number of people that came through, and with a power outage. There were, I only heard of a few bumps and scrapes, and that's about it. But you put, 18,000 people on a weekend, there's going to be kind of a law of averages, bumps and scrapes. But I'm happy to pause there and take comments or questions or concerns. I'm also happy to talk about some of the strategies we've taken regarding the power outage, but that might not be, appropriate for this committee. But I'm happy to answer any questions or take a breather. I also might have to let an old dog in the house. If you see me pop up, he's scratching the door at some point.
That's okay, Peter. I think from my personal point of view, I think the stroll was a great success in all the ways we think of it as being a success. Obviously, yes, a power outage was devastating for the businesses and for the workers. But I do know, Peter, you have been working diligently with trying to find resources and letting everyone know what the economic impact is to individual businesses, obviously your membership. So I think anyone that's a member of the chamber appreciates your efforts and your communication. I know you just sent out a wonderful sort of recap this week. Any other questions for Peter? Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Peter, I really got to commend you for your communication stuff. Even after and really working for, you know, the local people and the stores and restaurants and stuff, you know, for the economic impact and trying to raise some money for them. And so I think it's been great. You know, it's I really commend you and the chamber for doing that. So, but along that, what's, I guess, you know, other than the what happened on Stroll, you know, we're the overall big picture right now. I mean, what are you getting as a sense of feedback as far as our local businesses and kind of tied it in with the visitor services? Because, you know, I mean, we have 7 stores closing this year, and that worries me. It worries, you know, from the visitor service aspect that people want to come here, but what they need places to shop, places to eat. You know, obviously we have plenty of housing and stuff for well, I mean, for visitors at the right price, but you know, it's they also want something to do more than just go to the beach here. And so what's the overall sense, I guess, from your point of view?
Yeah, you know, it's a funny, there's a lot of water cooler inputs there. I think for the last, I maybe we'll call it 2 years, I think everyone on this call and on the island has seen, you know, there is price prohibition occurring, right? So we are still able to attract visitors of a lot of different backgrounds and, you know, socioeconomic scale, the whole bit. But every year, and not all these are island controlled things, but inflation happens and, you know, things get more expensive. Housing gets more expensive out here. The cost of employment goes up, all real factors, right? We're champions of some of those. Like, you got to pay your people enough to live here. You know, at some point that is shouldered by businesses supporting salaries. But, you know, we are definitely seeing, I mean, one of the reasons that with 3 hotels, I think that went down at Stroll with the power that had to be, again, thanks to Chantal and your team and members of the town for helping to shuffle that, there were vacancies, right? And not to say that there haven't been vacancies at Stroll, but, you know, there were more rooms than I thought were available. And I still think that was still indicative of people probably day tripped a little more for this one. And is Hyannis more affordable? Hyannis on a ferry trip more affordable than staying overnight in Nantucket? I'm sure at some, you know, cross matrix. Yes, I think that's still possible. So I think for us, we're certainly not in the position to recommend hotel stay prices or anything like that to our committees or restaurateurs to set a price point at menus or anything. But I think if you look at the forest, if you step back and stop looking at the individual trees, you could say it's expensive to come visit here, right? Like we've all known that. That's not a secret. I think how do we as an organization and in conjunction with the town, how to make sure if people are shifting to day trips rather than overnights, can't ignore the fact that we can still tempt people with overnights with, you know, the proper marketing and talking about the resources we have here, like incredible conservation land, world-class fishing, great beaches, boutiques, you know, to shop for it at. But do we target more of the pre-described itineraries here? If you get land on Hyannis by 8, you're over here by 9:30. You've got a sandwich and to go from your favorite shop at Provisions. You're hitting the trails at X amount. Like we can look to cater our visiting promotions to what people are looking for. And if we need to capture more day trips to kind of recover, call it a softening of long stay overnights. I think that's the other issue too. Are people staying for a week? Are they staying for 3 days? I think July and August are kind of outliers. I think those have always been, we'll call them semi-bulletproof, but there's so many legacy returning people that come back the 3rd week in July every year and will till, you know, long after I'm gone kind of thing, which is great. We're so fortunate to have kind of that built-in base. We always fight in the margins, right? We're always fighting on how do we increase shoulder season travel, and we're getting, you know, rumors that Chronicle's coming out to the island for a winter thing. We didn't organize it. Typically, we would, you know, be involved in that, but if we're seeing people trying to get here because it's off-season rates or whatever, you know, we also need to make sure that they have a place to eat and they have a place to shop at, and it's definitely you know, it's not happened overnight. I think this is more kind of a thousand paper cuts kind of thing. We're starting to see some ebbing away at some of the you know, institutions here.
Liz?
I just want to echo that, where we did see a lot more people who actually we recognized who were coming over from Hyannis for the day for stroll. So I think, Peter's idea of kind of looking at that segment, that because of the cost is they are making changes in their arrangements, that we could really maybe package up something for them, or be looking at that group a little bit more effectively to help them out.
Yeah. Peter, did you have a question?
Yeah, I don't have any raised hand thing. Those of you who remember Whitey Willauer, way back when, you don't have to raise your hand, but a lesson I learned from Whitey, when I have been arranging forums for the Civic League is to do an after-action report after each event. And I've done it ever since, and I've found it extremely useful. You just kind of go over what went wrong and, describe it in a sentence and alert people to this can happen. And you want to have some kind of advanced preparation insofar as you can. And so I'm suggesting that I think what I just heard Peter speak, and which has been recorded, is the perfect raw material to run through an AI thing, which will give you a remarkable summary of what he said. And then all one has to do, and I would say this is all you would have to do, all we would have to do is to take the transcript of that and say, well, let's look at all this stuff, and does anybody have any thoughts, about what one might be prepared to do, and create it, memorialize it as a document for people to see in the future. It's not as big a task as it seems, and it alerts you to the things that can go wrong. And after a while, you have a pretty good, book of what we need to think about and watch out for. And then when you hold an event the next year, you just say, let's assign people to be responsible for, jumping on whatever they can jump on immediately that has been recorded in the past. I don't know if you get the picture, but it's very helpful when you come back to it 11 months later and say, what do we need to worry about? It's just a checklist.
Yeah, and to follow that up, I think that goes into what we're worried about 3 months from now, which is Daffodil, right? Daffodil planning and the events committee that Bianca champions here, they meet at 9. And I'm looking squarely at National Grid, and saying, hey, at our, when we went to that select board meeting on the Wednesday after Stroll, and I thanked the 60 businesses that immediately responded to give us a ballpark figure, what we're looking at for, kind of impact, just to showcase this is a big deal. This wasn't just a light flicker. They gave a lot of reasons why we have such a stable power grid, and I believe them. I believe that it's stable, but they're telling us it was super stable. I'm telling you the power went out. So my ongoing conversations with National Grid will now include, of course, heading into any major, certainly chamber produced weekend. And I know, this team that puts together the 4th of July and so many other great events. I think now where we usually have, okay, where's DPW going to drop the barricades? Where is the Porta Johns going to go? Does National Grid have the backup team on the island already, right? Like, that's my question, is, are they going to start staging up things? Like, do we need to include, if dependency on a power grid that has shown some breaks in the armor, what real-time preparations can they do to make sure that if, things hit the fan, are they as best prepared as they can be? Because they can no longer say, well, that can't happen, your power grid's so stable, right? We've quite proven that otherwise. And that's not to try to roast National Grid. Like, I cannot even imagine what it looks like underground cabling and running. Like, I'm so out of my lane on trying to suggest how they should keep that thing up. I'm saying, hey, can you do things that would mitigate the response time for the unpredictable? And I think that's kind of what you're getting to, Peter. I think is, if this kind of incident doesn't force kind of a refresh of action plans, then we really have lost, a little ground on it, because it happened. We have to acknowledge that it stunk to high heaven, but it happened. What can we glean from it? Still, obviously we're not abandoning kind of the various efforts of support, that we're trying to do afterwards, but what are the tangible action steps we can take as a group that prepares and helps to prepare large scale weekends. It's our responsibility to do that.
Yeah. Peter, I might add that whenever there's a major storm predicted, summer, winter, whatever, there are extra lineman trucks that come over in advance of that. So maybe this kind of protocol should be put in place, to go along with what you just mentioned. Because I know I see them where they stay at different properties in town near the boat. So if that happens when a storm is predicted, then maybe there needs to be a protocol. And how good are these new generators that we supposedly have? Obviously, they weren't, because of the break in underground. They couldn't even use those. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think obviously the planning is essential. My other concern is, in general, if you look back at the report of this past year from the economic numbers, and that said, lo and behold, taking out event weekends, the day trippers were down 6 point some odd percent. So there again, I think we have to really look at, planning for the next 4 or 5 years. Have we outpriced ourselves? Obviously, the room's occupancy tax, and which includes hotels and short-term rentals, is down significantly this past summer. That should be a red flag, because that not only shows a decrease in occupancy, but to be perfectly honest, I believe our town budget relies on that income. So with all the major projects that are in the pipeline to come down in the next 5 to 10 years, I think that's significant in terms of some challenges that every business out here has. But sorry, anyone else have a comment for Peter? Matt?
No, I think that's great, Peter. I mean, like Mary said, with the, when we have storms, they send out extra linemen. I mean, it's kind of like what Liz did with the stranded passenger protocol and plan. It's, sometimes it takes an event or, something unfortunate to happen to really start kind of open the eyes, like, oh, we need to preemptively kind of put a plan in place here. And, it's, I think that's great. I think it's, whatever can happen, especially on these big weekends. And on these busy weekends, all the boats are usually sold out as well. And so it's, it's even more imperative to kind of plan ahead a little bit too, because with the boat sold out, trying to get trucks over and all this other stuff. And I know the steamship, they can push and bump it if they have to for emergencies. And so, but yeah, I mean, it's great. And also I think it's great to lean, because it is mostly all small business, even big business, like, me working for FedEx, lean on those people. I have reservations, the Cape Cod Express has reservations. There's always, plans and deals. And I'd say this to Chantal as well, there's people in the community that are absolutely willing to help out and things and make phone calls and see if we can move things around. If we need to get stuff over here, equipment or line trucks and things like that. So.
Thank you.
Peter?
I just want to be sure this thing doesn't sprawl outward into a giant thing. The after action report is simply a memo that says, this is what happened, this is what we did, this is the lesson we learned. And, it should be something that somebody who thinks about this can draft in about an hour, and to be most comprehensive, AI might really do a great job. But, it's not, it's a 2-hour exercise. And then you can get into all the other stuff that's been discussed.
Niles?
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, this is just prompting a thought, and I don't know that this is the chamber's job to lead it, but Peter's comments just have me thinking about the town's current emergency response planning. And is there any evidence that the town is taking this as a really important signal that we should be stepping up our game, or at least revising the current plan? Again, I'm not saying this is a chamber or visitor services mandate, but it does make me wonder.
Yeah. I don't have any answers. I know that when Liz and a few people worked really hard on putting together something, and maybe Chantal could add information to it, we were sort of told, slow down, that, we couldn't do some of those things. Chantal?
I can speak to that. So I have a standard operating procedure for every large scale event that I touch. So that's Halloween, 4th of July, Daffodil Festival, Christmas Stroll. I can't speak to oh my goodness, shame on me. It's too early in the morning. The August one that Boston Pops. There we go. I have not touched that. This will be my first year touching that. So whenever we have these events, I have a standard operating procedure for the town specifically. Who does what? Starting from the planning phase through the permitting phase to the actual day of to after. We usually have a meeting after each of these events to go over what went wrong, which we did with whoever the organizer is. So that was Peter, public safety, myself, natural resources, anybody who touches the event. We have a large meeting before and after to go over it. And then I update my standard operating procedure for those events. So what you're talking about, Peter, does exist already. I don't know if Peter Morrison, I don't know if Peter Burke, if they have it for the chamber, but I know I definitely have it, just so each year as we plan these events, I can go back and look. So like Peter said, the porta potty situation from last Christmas Stroll 2023, that was on my little checklist of things to make sure that the permitting department updated for this year to remind Peter, which they were on top of it. So yes, it does exist. We do already do that. And we're constantly updating it. And we're really fortunate over the last 2 years with all the changes over at public safety and in the various departments and on cabinet, that we have a really strong team of people that, as far as emergency management goes, I think it took us about 6 minutes to get everything together. I think I was probably the first person to realize that the power was out because nobody else was in town from the town. And once I started calling around and alerting folks, and they're like, oh yeah, we heard that. We thought it was, a one-off business situation or whatever. I'm like, nope, the whole town is out. It was really quick, run to Main Street, grab Peter Burke, make sure we can use his conference room. And we were in that meeting. And then just to clarify one thing that Peter mentioned about National Grid and Steamship was very cooperative in adding an extra boat so that National Grid could come over. The issue and why they couldn't come over on that 4 o'clock that the Steamship was willing to run is that with National Grid getting all the equipment that they needed and getting all the guys, they had to get their crew to the site that the equipment was stored, then get that equipment down to the ferry, and they just couldn't do it in that time frame. And then the Steamship crew timed out, unfortunately. So they were struggling to try to get another crew on, which didn't work out. And they actually ended up holding that boat that they did come over on. They sat there and waited for them to come down and make it to that boat. So it all, there were a few hiccups, as you can imagine, trying to coordinate something like this, and it's unfortunate that communication wasn't getting out to the community and the businesses as we were going along, but we had really good communication between the town, the chamber, and National Grid, and the Steamship. And Liz, and all the hotels. Garrison, you took my emergency call of, okay, how many rooms do you have? Because I'm trying to get an accurate count. We were really lucky. I know I did get an email from someone that, how the Nantucket rumor mill goes, that there were all these guests that were without places to stay that had been displaced because of the power outage. There were actually 60 guests at the Roberts Collection hotels that lost power, that got moved within 15 minutes to their other hotels. So it wasn't like we had people outside in the cold for hours on end. It was about 15 minutes of, okay, let's assess how many guests we have. Do they want to move or do they want to get off the island? And if folks wanted to leave, Liz was kind enough to just save us a bunch of spots on all of the boats that were leaving that afternoon till the very last boat. And she was even working with the Scudders to figure out if there was an extra boat that was needed to go later in the night. So we had a really good handle on what to do for guests and visitors to the island. And unfortunately, our businesses, with the power being out, they suffered the most. And I know Christmas Stroll is a big final push weekend for them, especially the restaurants. Because if you're a retail owner like myself, I turned my cell phone into my point of sale system, and we were just up there taking transactions on our phones, but the restaurants can't function like that. So yeah, long-winded answer, it does exist. And that's all of what we did on our end.
Terrific.
Matt?
Just a touch on the emergency action plan. One of the firefighters in a public comment to the select board a couple meetings ago, this is right after what happened in New Orleans. They made a comment about Jersey barriers and how maybe we should be using those instead of like just the wooden planks and stuff if somebody did. And I would like to think that would never happen. I hope it would never happen here. But is that something, I don't know if that's been talked about at all, or if that's, I don't want that to be a concern here, but you also never know. And so, you know, I guess it's kind of one of those, I don't know, a different issue, but I don't know if there was much follow-up on that. You know, because it seemed to be concerning from a firefighter point of view, so.
If I can respond, Madam Chair?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. So obviously the holidays happened. So we haven't had I call it our summer issues team, but it's grown into so much more than just summer issues. We no longer meet for 3 months of the year. We meet every month except for this month. So our first meeting will be in February where we all come together. It's transformed into our special events internal committee is what we're dubbing it. So I'm sure that will come up at that meeting to talk about what we do, because I always say nothing bad ever happens in our town until something bad happens in our town, is what you hear in every town. I'm always concerned about things like that. So I'm sure it'll come up and we'll assess a little bit more.
All right. Any other questions for Peter? Peter, I want to thank you for being here and giving us an update. Feel free to come back with any summer updates, spring updates.
Sure. I don't want to undercut our committee. I know for Daffodil, just really briefly, if anyone's ever been a part of the Daffodil registration, the car parade sign up, it has become the single biggest stressful day for my staff and for the general public. But race to your laptop or computer. I will tell you that we are looking to change that. Bianca has developed a really, what I think is a great strategy. We'll leave the window of registration open longer and kind of pick by committee via a committee of third-party people, you know, obviously people who are involved in what's going on. We've moved the age range up, but we're trying to reduce the hectic nature and stressful nature of signing up by, you know, it ends up being less than a 2-hour window that it's open. And God forbid you had to bring your kids to school, you'd like miss the window. So we're looking to address that. I'm expecting a little bit of backlash because now, you know, there's no guarantee that you're going to get in if you sign up, right? Which is, we want to make sure we're honoring some legacy. You know, it's a locals thing, so we want to make sure we're you know, favoring locals as well. So we want to make sure that we tell the public exactly our plans, how we're going to evaluate. But just to let you know, we are going to change the registration process a little bit, and at some point, it's just because we're so lucky that we've got as many interested people as we do. But the other side is a PR game. The reason we're doing these changes is because it's supposed to be a fun spring festival, and the race to the sign up has become a long-term stressor of people calling in every 3 days and kind of chirping at my staff. So I'm done with that. And so I got to, we're going to change some things up a little bit, but like I said, I'm sure the events committee will provide a solid this crew. But that's coming down the pipes. And thank you very much for all the support, by the way. I know everyone on this call has their hands, you know, up to their elbows in helping us execute and evaluate these events. So, and supporting them. So thank you.
Peter, you're more than welcome to stay on, or you can go get ready for the events committee at 9.
I got the right teammate for that. I'm putting Bianca on that. I am going to hop off, but thank you very much for having me.
That's okay. I will be on that call.
Thank you very much,
Peter.
Team. Appreciate it.
Okay, moving right along on the agenda, director's report. Chantal, I think you shared a lot already about what went on in Stroll, and I thank you for all of those efforts. I didn't know about some of them.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on in a crisis. But thank you guys for having me again. Pleasure to see all of your lovely faces. I'm going to start my director's report with an introduction to Dina Weatherly, who is our new Cultural Affairs and Special Events Coordinator. And Dina, if you wanted to just introduce yourself to the Visitor Services Advisory Committee.
Sure. Thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Dina, pronounced Dina, not Deanna. And I just started a month and a half ago, working with Chantal and David. I'm doing cultural affairs and special events. So on the cultural affairs side, working mainly with as the liaison for the Cultural Council. On the special event side, doing special event permitting and coordinating that across departments and with applicants as well. So I will probably be here at this meeting and also in a lot of other meetings with a lot of other departments and a lot of other committees. So if you see me there, say hi and I will say hi as well. I'm very excited to start this position. And I also grew up on the island, so very excited to be back home as well. And thank you for having me.
I don't know if anyone has any questions for Dina. Just kind of hit the ground running. We've been revisiting how the town processes special event applications, film and photography applications as well. Really fortunate to have a call in with Netflix and the Massachusetts Film Office to just kind of look at how we handle our permitting process for film and photography on the island, because it's been really difficult for folks who just, if you want to get simple B-roll, it's really hard. So I'm trying to learn all that I can about the film and photography industry to see how we can just kind of make that a little bit easier, and how we ensure that when there are productions on the island, it is actually adding value to the island, to our businesses, to our residents, to our visitors, and it is in the least disruptive way possible. Obviously keeping those blackout dates, during the crazy summer months where we're not even entertaining any filming on the island, because that would just be a nightmare. But working through that. And then of course, looking at the special events permitting process as a whole, and how to just, if you've ever planned an event on the island, you realize that there's a lot of missing information on our website. You're kind of just hoping for the best as you submit the permit. And we want to put information out there to folks ahead of the game. So you're going to be seeing a flurry of communication, from ads in the paper to the Current to chamber e-blasts to town managers' emails, social media. We're just going to be bombarding folks with stuff, because we recognize that February 1st is the unofficial opening date for permit applications. So when folks are planning large scale events on the island, February 1st is really when our office is going to get hit with all of those applications. So for people who have done it years and years, year and year over doing those events, they have all the information they need, but whenever there's change or turnover in those organizations, it gets a little confusing. Things fall to the wayside. So we're trying to make sure that all the information is on the website. If you go to our culture and tourism page, you'll see that we've been working really hard on getting that updated, so it looks completely different now, and it has a lot of great information on there that's just very user friendly and easy to read through. Has all of our contact information on there if you ever get lost or confused, and all that good stuff. As far as the passport realm goes, last year we collected 984 passport applications. That does not include renewals for minors and new passport applications. That doesn't include the renewals that we help adults with. So if you find yourself completing a passport application, you're completely lost and you just need someone to look it over for you, you can pop into our office. And Dina is also certified as a passport acceptance agent now, so she can help as well. So that number doesn't include those people, which you can imagine is I think last time I checked, it was more than the actual applications that we receive and mail off for folks. So the passport world is really busy. I keep wondering how there are more people coming in for passports, because I feel like I've seen everyone on the island for passports at this point, but there's still more coming, which is great. These people are traveling and seeing the world. And then for our visitor data, I pulled the data for specifically for the month of December. And of course, my computer just froze. Oh, there we go. For the month of December, and specifically honed in a little bit more from Thanksgiving week to Christmas stroll. So for the month of December, we had 34,000 visitors with an average dwell time of 620 minutes, 5 hours, or 10 hours rather. They were hanging out on the island, which is really nice. So that shows that we had a lot of day trippers coming for longer periods of time, which is great. So it kind of weeds out the commuters. It showed an 11.3% increase in visitors from in December 2024 from December 2023. And for Thanksgiving to stroll, we had 42,000 visitors over that 2-week period. And they were, that showed a 31.5% increase from last year, 35% increase from 2 years ago, and it is up 56% from 3 years ago. So we're seeing heavy increase in visitors for Thanksgiving and Christmas stroll, with majority of those visitors coming for Christmas stroll. What we're finding now is with the president's visit being so well documented on the island, or through our media outlets, that more people are coming over for our tree lighting ceremony as well. Majority of our visitors were flying in through Logan, and we had a lot of folks. Next in line was the High Line and then Steamship. Cisco Brewers was the most popular location on the island outside of the downtown historic district, which had some astronomical numbers for folks, which I'm hoping means that people were shopping and eating and enjoying all of our cultural sites on the island. And that's a great transition into the cultural side of my job, which is the Nantucket Cultural Council closed their grant cycle and had their official voting meeting on recipients last night. So that's done for this year, and we had 11. We awarded grants to 11 applicants, which is really nice. We actually had about $35,000 in grant requests. Mass Cultural Council only gives the Nantucket Cultural Council $5,700. We're hoping that as we continue to see increase in grant requests, that they will look favorably on the Cultural Council and start to give us more funds. What we do with our partnership with the Cultural Council and the Cultural District is that what the Cultural Council can't fund, the Cultural District will fund as well. So we go back through those applications and either try to award them funds that for the remainder of the project that they're doing, or for folks who just didn't fit the Cultural Council guideline, the Cultural District has a little bit more leeway and can help them with their projects. But it has to be projects that are happening on the island, on local cultural sites. We look favorably on applications that offer free events to the general public as well, to children and to elderly folks. So yes, that's my director's report. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer that.
Great, Shanta, great work. Okay, moving along. David, we got all sorts of numbers from you.
What's that?
We had all sorts of pages of historical numbers.
Yeah, before I get into that, I'm gonna kind of just want to mention that we were going off air at 9 o'clock, so I'm gonna try to be as quick as possible. The office is now open Monday through Friday. We're closed on Saturday and Sunday, also through the winter holidays. And then we'll start expanding our Saturday, Sundays in April. We are, the straight work kiosk is closed, airport kiosk is closed, but I'm providing updating information at the airport kiosk as well as dropping off information at the Greenhound desk. So we're constantly updating things. And now in the stat for December, I wanted to point out that we are had 611 people come through the office in December, 45 of which asked for the Cisco van. 189 were passport inquiries, and also the Christmas stroll was pretty strong. We had 358 people come through the 4 days. That was a little off from the year before, but stronger than 22. And as Mary mentioned, we also have yearly stats that I included. For 2024, overall visitors were up compared to the last 5 years. And the stat, phone calls and mailings are down, or phone calls are down, but the mailings are back up. And so basically that's really it in terms of our stats. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions for David? Matt?
Yeah, just a quick question, David or Liz. Like in the wintertime, we get the collect tours and all that kind of stuff, day tripping over here. Are we seeing a decline in those at all, or have we seen any changes? Because I feel like the businesses downtown that stay open year round probably, I wouldn't say rely, but I'm sure it helps out.
I can speak to that, is that I've actually been in touch with Hyannis because Monday, so there's really nothing open. The museum's not open. There's not a lot in terms of businesses open. So I've already alerted Hyannis to, dissuade or just let them know what they're walking into if they're going to come over for the day. People are definitely still coming over for the day. Obviously around it's, I don't have any numbers about it or whatever, but people are still coming over for the day throughout the weekends and on the weekends. So, but the weather plays a huge role in that, needless to say. If the weather's iffy or not great, then obviously, we're having fewer people come over for the day, so.
Yeah, and we do have a few people wandering in that are looking for things to do. They think that it's because they're trying to avoid the crowds in the summer, but the thing is that I've had a few where they are looking for things and then the museum's closed, and then we'll try to help them out with like giving them walking tour suggestions and so forth. But it also, with all, a lot of the stores are closed at this time of year, especially around the holidays. It tends to be challenging, but things start opening back up in like late January, February.
Yeah.
So we'll start seeing more people coming out.
Okay, any other questions for David? All right, I want to thank you all. I would need we only have 3 minutes before we're shut down.
Motion to adjourn.
Because of our time frame for this Zoom.
Second
can
by
I
Peter.
Yeah, can I have second? Okay. All right, I need a roll call vote for adjournment. Peter?
Aye.
Liz?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Garrison?
Aye.
Niles?
Aye.
And chair votes aye to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all. We will get together again. I believe it's February 11th.
Thank you.
So,
Bye, everybody.
thank you, everybody.